Hey guys, and welcome to episode 53 with myself and Dan, the Garage Athlete Show. We have another guest. Dan is the man with a plan who likes to get all the guests organised because he's more talkative than I am. So I'll let Dan introduce the guest for tonight. I think
that's worrying when I'm the more talkative one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got a lad on called Chris Macredie, I think. We'll get him to pronounce his name properly, a Scottish fella. Basically, he got shared to our home gym group, just a video of his where he's doubling, I think it's 320 kilos for a day. But what is more impressive is that he's normally a bodybuilder. So it's good. It was good, from my point of view, to see a bodybuilder lifting quite a decent amount of weight, but quite a young age. I think he's only 23 from what I've read. And I know he's a coach, and I know he's got a bit of a YouTube channel. So we thought it would be good to get him on and talk about what's life like being jacked as fucking natty, as what it looks like. His Instagram page. Yeah, so thought it'd be good to get a little guest on maybe you haven't heard before. Maybe
it's an American. We were having a chat before about who the DFCA is. It's an American Natural Bodybuilding Association. So
is it?
Yeah. So
the American then, do you reckon?
Yeah. No, he might be based in America. I know he's got Scottish, but he has competed in his thing. You can see in the background is BMBF. So it looks like he's gone over to America to get his pro card.
Oh, sweet.
Which is, it's not bad. Like you don't see many pros in their mid-20s in natural bodybuilding, just because it takes so much longer to build muscle without anabolics. A lot of guys, they have to hit that muscle maturity sort of stage, but I think it's getting, natural bodybuilding's growing. Like, there wasn't really much money in it but there's, it looks a bit like the feds are getting much bigger, the athletes are getting much better, which then is making it appealing, because obviously the whole anti-drugs thing. Oh, here he is. Get down.
You talking to me or the dog?
Dog wants to get up on my lap. Stay down. Oh, is he in?
He's in. I think he's just got to unmute or start his video. I think. Here we go.
Video.
Hey, Chris, you
he's in, I think.
We can see him. We can't hear him yet.
Can we hear you, Chris? Oh, he's connecting to audio.
Is that us?
He's in.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
You're in, buddy.
Definitely Scottish. How are you doing, Chris? How are you?
How are we? How's things?
Yeah, good.
I believe it says I'm like I'm terrible with these things. I actually think it says that it's recording.
It is recording.
Yeah, we were just having a bit of a chat beforehand.
All right, yeah, that's fine. No, so it's not on, like, you are recording it anyway, aren't you?
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. So I don't need to do anything else now.
No. We record it on our end. I'll post it and I can just send you the details and you just.
No, I get that. I'm terrible with these type of things.
you done many podcasts then, or?
Yeah, like I've like joined quite a few, but I've never like done my own. You know what I mean? I've never done like a main kind of thing where I've had to worry about like recording it and all that kind of stuff. So I've just kind of been like the one that's kind of just joined it and started talking rubbish, and that's been it.
It's a lot less of a stressful way to do it. But
yeah, Don's the man.
Having done all the research on it now, it's one of those things where when it starts out, it feels really complicated. But then the more that you do it, because you just do it over and over again, and you find ways to make things faster, it just gets easier and easier until you then go, fuck this, I'm going to pay somebody to do this. It's boring now. But yeah, how are you anyways, Chris? Nice to get you on. Where are you based in the UK at the moment? So obviously you're a DFAC competitor, but do you live in the UK still, or are you based in America?
So the now I'm still in Scotland, so I am. So there's been quite a lot happening recently. So there's been quite a bit of travelling and that happening in the kind of recent few months and that. But just really when the kind of COVID restrictions lifted, quite a lot of things took off again. So there's been a little bit of travelling involved then. But like right now, I'm back in Scotland. So goodness knows for how long. For the now anyway. And yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Thank you
It's
so
great
much.
to have you on, mate. So for those that don't know, I think you and Don will have a good chat. Don's a natural bodybuilder as well. But can you talk us through what is a pro card? What's the process through to getting it, and how did you achieve it?
So the way that kind of last year went, obviously last year was the main kind of big year. It ended up a really long year because we were meant to compete in the kind of September time. And then it got cancelled, and I believe it got cancelled again, so we never ended up competing until December. It was a long year, so what I really had to do was, first of all, you would have to go through like a regional qualifier. So that would be more or less a BNBF qualifier to get to the finals. Then you would just be competing in your category at the finals. So you would then need to take it that bit further when you get there. So obviously after the regionals, I done them in 2019, and I was able to take the 2019 one all the way to the Worlds. So because I was able to take it to the Worlds in 2019, it then gave me like a bypass to the British finals for 2020. So really what it meant was I didn't have to do a qualifier. I could have done one if I wanted to, but I didn't have to. So we kind of just put all eyes on the finals, for the British finals anyway. So the main aim was really just to take the junior category, because that was the one that kind of everything went to plan, everything went really well, but then it kind of switched around at the finals, and then there was a lot of stuff that came out after the finals that I don't know, like without going into it, maybe shouldn't have happened and things like that. So it's just a case of like, we had all eyes set on the finals for 2020. Everything happened with COVID, and again, it was like, the aim was always, regardless of who was going to compete, who wasn't going to compete, the goal was always to go for the British finals. So that's what we done. Goal being the junior category, to take that just to kind of tick it off, really, because it was quite annoying that I had achieved the title for everything else. So it was like the only thing that wasn't there, and it was like quite annoying because I was just like, right, I just really want that ticked off. So that was the goal up until maybe around 4 weeks before the show, and then it kind of switched up. And Vicky, my coach, she was like, it was a case of 4 weeks out it got cancelled again, so we literally ran the whole peak week, and 4 weeks out got cancelled, and then it was a case of the way of staying in it. The pro card was then the goal. The goal was no longer just to take the British title for the junior. So really what you would have to do, once you get to the British finals, you would need to win your category, then you would get put to the overall. You would need to then win the overall, and then that's when you would gain a pro card, really. So you would need to really be the overall British champion at the end of the night, kind of thing. So you would need to beat all classes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so normally in natural bodybuilding, there's one pro card given out a year.
Yeah.
And that's to the person who wins the British finals and the overall at the British finals. Like it's not like in assisted bodybuilding where pro cards are handed out like a lot. Like in the natural side, like pro cards are still really, really rare. And to be honest, you can even win the British finals, and if they don't think you are good enough to be a pro, they can just say, we're not going to give you a pro card. Because I was listening to a podcast with the guy who runs the UK DFBA.
Yep.
He was saying because last year they only had the one competition, they didn't have any qualifiers. They were umming and ahhing on whether they were going to give the overall guy a pro card because he hadn't had to go through a qualifier and things like that. But I think if you show up and if you're the caliber of athlete that could then go and compete at the pro ranks, like the difference between amateur and pro is this. I don't know if you found this, Chris, but there's a big jump up in the quality of the people that you're competing against. And if you're not quite ready for that jump up, I don't think it would be fair to give someone a pro card that wasn't ready for it, because they've gone from winning shows, winning overalls, to then come in and placing last in shows. It's going to be horrendous for their confidence. So When you said you were going straight for the pro card, was that then you went to did you go for a different federation that was in the US there where it would have been, there's a different route to getting a pro card, or like how did that one work?
No, so really, like, we knew that there was going to be a pro card by the end of the night at the BNBF British finals. So really the goal was, obviously for me anyway, was to take the British junior title. That would have really secured that one, and that would have been like a kind of very big thing in the night. But once we kind of got to the 4-week out mark, it was a case of we weren't really just like Vicky seen a lot more in me than what I would see in myself, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So it gets to like, you get 3-4 weeks out and you're kind of just seeing the same things. You start thinking you're fat, you know what I mean? All these things change. So I mean, head was on, we were ready to kind of go in, and once I kind of was closing in on show day, so it was still just the BNBF British final, sorry, that was literally the only show that I done, the one and only show that I done last year. Once we closed in on that, I was kind of more or less getting into the kind of headspace of, right, we're going for the pro card, and that's okay. Like, do you know what I mean? So you were kind of bypassing the junior category. It was like,
you wanted to
go for the overall, you had to get past that. Yeah, you knew you had to get past that to get to the overall regardless. So it was like, at the start, it was a very big thing, taking the junior category. That was like box one ticked. The next one was get through the overall. So
is the BNBF still done on weight categories then?
Yeah.
So what are you weighing in at then if you manage to beat a heavyweight?
Yeah, so I was obviously, the junior category is from 20 to 23. So I was 22, and then once you hit 23, then it's lights, middleweights, heavyweights. On stage I was 86 kilos, so regardless of it, I would have fell in the heavyweights.
Okay.
So it would have ended up that way anyway. So I really, I didn't really have a choice to. I never really had an excuse.
Well, I'm not being 22 and 86 kilos, and just looking at your Instagram here, you were in good nick. Like that's ridiculous at 22 to have achieved that level of muscularity, like naturally. So well done on that part, just because I know.
Do you have like super jack parents, or is it just, did you find you were just kind of, you've always carried a lot of muscle, or like, you know, let's go through it?
It's weird, like, see, like at home, like it's always just been like me and my mom, like, and I always have said that, like, I would always get my work ethic from my mom's side. Like my mom's like, it's crazy, like it's non-stop kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? She'll graft and graft and graft and graft and graft, like with her work and things like that, and anything to do with anything else. And I've always said that that's where I would get that side of things from. Do you know what I mean? She's always been a case of like, well, she would never look for help first. She would always try and do it herself, kind of thing. She would always, like, regardless if it's moving something that's silly that you would be like, no, you need a bit of help with that, she would be first thing to just go and kind of do something like that. But it's never really been a case of like, I don't know, like I always kind of get the genetics card thrown at me, like, oh, you can. I don't know. It's a hard one. Like I would never sit here and say that I've got the worst genetics, but I would also never sit here and say that I've got unbelievable genetics. Do you know what I mean? So it's a hard one to kind of go through. But that was one of the things in 2019 at the Worlds. You can also win the overall at the Worlds. If you do that, you also win a pro card. So it's like there is one pro card given out at the British finals, but then at the World finals, there's another pro card given out, but you've got to win the overall of, the World finals. So I took the junior category at the Worlds in 2019, which put me into the overall of the World finals. The guy there was like between the top two, we got placed like in the very middle, and everything was going like really well to plan, and I lost out on maturity, obviously just down to my age. I got told it was nothing else. There was no lagging body parts or anything like that. There was no lagging in condition or anything. It was simply just down to the muscle maturity side of things. I believe the guy was, I think he was like 37, 38-year-old. Don't get me wrong, he had everything. He had an incredible physique, muscle maturity obviously through the roof. He looked unbelievable. So it wasn't really a case of, I wasn't gutted or anything like that. It was just a case of, well, I can't really help the fact that I'm only 21 years old. It's like, it's just one of these things. So really, again, it was quite a hit or a miss, because coming back like a year later, I'm not going to be 100% matured just yet, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, like just turning 22. So it was quite a big difference, obviously, from 2019 to 2020. But again, I'm kind of just hoping that obviously there's a little bit more left in the tank to obviously still kind of like bring out a little bit more. So
when did you actually start training, if at 21 you're going to Worlds and coming in second place, like basically saying you're the second best natural bodybuilder in the world? Like how many years have you got behind you?
I started training, I got my first gym induction. I had to wait until my 16th birthday. So because where I am, there's only a leisure centre, so there is, and you have to be 16 to get into the gym. So I had to wait until my 16th birthday to get an induction. Even at that, like bodybuilding was never ever the goal. I never set out to become a bodybuilder. I never set out to train like one or do anything like that. Like the main goal was always professional wrestling. Like growing up, I always wanted to be a professional wrestler. Set out to do that, like done a lot of traveling and that to train, because obviously where I am, there was nothing here. So I had to travel to Glasgow like 2 or 3 times a week just to train. Done that, like started, like I traveled all over the world with the wrestling. It was really good. But again, it just kind of came to the point where once I got into bodybuilding, there was a little bit too much in between the both, because I was trying to do one thing with bodybuilding one weekend. I was then booked for a wrestling show the next weekend, and you were like trying to juggle both. And it just got to the point really where I had achieved what I wanted to achieve in the wrestling, and the bodybuilding kind of became the main priority. So the wrestling just kind of took the back seat, and then I had to kind of call it a day on it. And that's when bodybuilding like solely became the main really big thing. So that was back end of 2018, maybe the start of 2019. So
what was your wrestling name? What was were you a villain? Were you a good guy? Like,
I was always a bad guy. It was like I was always the guy that was like known as the guy that was kind of cocky and up his own arse just because he had a bit of muscle behind him and that. Do you know what I mean? But it was so easy because you could go out and you could just literally rile kids up something funny because they hated you instantly. So it was so funny. It was good. No, it was good. I loved it. Like I loved every minute of it. But it just kind of came to the point where there was a little bit too much going on. And again, like that's where like my name in the wrestling was Kiffy West, and it was because Kiffy's my nickname, so I wanted to always keep that in. And then the West, we basically took that from the guy that I used to always look up to. I still pretty much like I'll still look up to him a lot. Was John Cena. Obviously, he was in the wrestling now. He's just too soaked up into movies and things, but he's from West Newbury, Massachusetts in America. So we took the West from that just so it kind of had a little bit to do with obviously why I got into it. So it was a little bit unique in that. But we took it from that, and then basically because of social media and things, I wasn't wanting to go about like changing my name back on social media and things to like Chris McCready, and then people would be like, right, who the fuck's Chris McCready? So it was like I just kept it as that, and throughout the bodybuilding and social media and that, it's really just been a stage name. So it's
I mean, what's I love it, man. It's such a cool story, but I mean, there's still, you know, you never know. I guess there still could be potential that you go back into it at some point. You know, there's bodybuilding and you know, wrestling seem to be, you know, they kind of coexist, and you hear a lot of stories. You know, the one that springs to mind is, you know, like the Bell family, like Mark Bell, you know, was you know, in wrestling, and now he's gone on to do what he's done. So this kind of, you know, this thing there. Do you think it's something you might potentially dabble back in if the opportunity arose?
I think so, yeah. I kind of left it with the attitude that it was a case of never say never, really, because I enjoyed it a lot. I never left on bad terms. I never left because I wanted to leave. I left because it kind of came to the point where if I really, really, really wanted to pursue bodybuilding, or again, I really wanted to pursue the wrestling, it was a case of, it came to the point where one needed to be the main thing. It was going to be like I hate saying it would have been impossible, but it just would have really been extremely hard to try and juggle the both of them and try and take one all the way and try and take the other all the way kind of thing. So
yeah, you had to pick, just because it's those people that try and spin too many plates at once, isn't it? They end up not giving either opportunity the full potential that it could have. Whereas if you put all your eggs in one basket, as you've shown, you've been able to take it to a really, really high stage. And I'm sure if you put all your eggs in the wrestling basket, like, you would have been able to take that to a really, really high standard, because, as you said, you seem to have a really, really good work ethic. Is to have packed on that amount of muscle in like 3 to 4 years, like, as somebody who has been training for 10 plus years, like, I know how much work that kind of must take. So you said you've got a female coach. Like, how did you find your coach? Is it just somebody local? Did you seek her out? Did she seek you out? Like, how did that coaching relationship come about?
Well, Vicky owns the Body Academy up in Perth, which is the kind of so-called like mecca of natural bodybuilding, really. It's like a very big gym based, and she is between her and Guy, who's her partner, they are like the founders of like the BMBF. So she's seen me competing throughout a teen, because I competed as a teen first, and like that was obviously before I moved up to the junior. So my first competition was at 19, and then I never joined with Vicky until 2019. So I was actually, what would that have been, my second year in the juniors. So really, it kind of got to the point where I approached her and was like, I went up and seen her at the gym, and she basically had a look at me and things like that. She had seen me competing throughout the years, 2000.
Oh, is that my... Okay, we've lost everyone for a second. Hopefully, oh. That's correct.
It's one of the things that I didn't realize I was fortunate enough to be a professional rugby player. That's my background. But I think if I had to go again, I'd be like, fuck, wrestling would be awesome, man. Like, get to show off and, you know,
Hey,
create and all that.
That was good.
I lost connection there. The last thing I heard was you saying you'd been up to see Vicky at the Body Academy because she'd seen you compete as a teen.
Yep. So she seen me throughout my teenage years, and then obviously seen me throughout my first year as a junior, and then second year as a junior. We started working together, and that was when I actually that was like the first year that kind of everything was obviously more so towards bodybuilding, and that was it. I was able to take that was the first year I had to do a regional qualifier as well. So we waited until the back end of the year, done the northern qualifier, and I was actually able to take the overall at it. So again, it was like quite a big thing, because obviously I was only a junior, and that was, what age would I have been, 21, and we were able to obviously take the overall of the northern qualifier, and then onto the British finals. And then that was the British finals that I had placed second by apparently 1 point, and then I also got put to the overall of the British finals, which was a little bit, I don't know, it was just a little bit different. And then again, it was like the following bit after that, I was then invited out to the world finals for 2019, where I then went on and won the junior class at the worlds. But it was at the finals, the British finals, that I came up runner up. So I kind of knew, although I was going to the worlds in 2019, I knew that the following year I was going to go back in and try and get the British title, because it was just like, instead of going onto like social media and things like that and bitching about it and stuff like that, because obviously stuff never went to plan, the goal was really just kind of set in place straight away that the following year the British finals was back on again, just to try and secure that title. So
that's a great way of dealing with it, mate. Just turning it from, you know, it's easy to go online, moan about it, cause some issues, whereas it sounds like, you know, you got a get straight back in, put the work in. I think particularly bodybuilding more than any other sport. I know you know, for that one bit on stage, you really have to graft all year. You know, I think people underestimate. You know, we had a guy called Screamer on. Who you know has a hell of a physique, huge guy, and he's already saying I'm going to take the next couple of years out to build muscle because he's like, I need the bigger, better package. And to anyone looking on the street, you'd be like, what the hell? And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely. It's just people don't understand. I think particularly the importance of building muscle and the time and the process it takes. I think everyone kind of wants to be ripped quite quickly, and I always say if you want to get really lean, it doesn't take as long as it would take to build huge amounts of muscle.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, more often than not, you see the guys with the best physiques have done it. You know, they've not necessarily worried about being thin. It's the same in powerlifting strongman. They haven't worried too much about weight class. Like we had a world's strongest man competitor on last week, Paul Smith, and he said, well, I didn't care about weight classes. If I was 106, I wouldn't diet down to the 105 because I was thinking to the, you know, the next class up. And, you know, he's now at world. So it goes to show. I mean, it sounds like you just focused your younger years purely on building muscle then.
Definitely. I mean, although I like the way I kind of look at it now, Wes, I don't regret competing when I was a teenager, but I kind of think to myself, if I never competed as a teenager and I never spent maybe 5-6 months out of the kind of teenage side of things dieting down, I would have had like an extra 5 or 6 months potentially in a surplus, depending what I could have got out of that. But I also look at it again as if I never done that in my teenage years, would I be where I am now? I kind of believe that was just part of the kind of puzzle to really get to where I am now. So it's always kind of, you always think about like, what if I never done that? But then again, it's always a case of, well, if I never done that, would I be here? So
yeah, I think, you know, we're talking 6 months here. We're not talking 6 years. You know, I think. You know,
definitely.
And you got all that valuable comp experience as well, which is.
I think it's, as you said, the experience of dieting down.
Sorry,
I was just saying the experience of dieting and getting that lean. Once you've done it, it doesn't scare you as much. And also, I don't know if you found this, but the first time you competed, the first time I competed, I looked shocking on stage because of the stress, because I was freaking out about, I dieted now, I think it was the first time I competed, I dieted for like 16 weeks and it's all about this day. And then you get there, you're literally on stage for half an hour. It's loads of fun. Everyone's dead welcome. And you're like, why was I so stressed about this? And the second time you step on stage, you're just like, your body looks completely different because you're not holding on to all that water. So I think stage time and stage presence has a big place, especially in bodybuilding. I think people underestimate the things like the importance of posing and also just being comfortable in that environment. A lot of people basically shit it when they're at that point because they don't know what to expect. And when you don't know what you don't know, it can be very, very daunting.
Definitely. Yeah, that's 100% one of the things. 100%. It was something I kind of learned obviously more throughout the years as well, was just to kind of relax more, especially on show day. I would always be like, once it gets to the point where you're sitting through backstage and you're waiting on classes going, a case of just putting my feet up and literally relaxing until the point where it comes that I've got to go on stage. I would always kind of be sitting overthinking, or you get like the competitor list and you're going on Instagram and seeing who you're up against, seeing if you know what they look like and things like that, and then you see what somebody looks like and you're like, fuck, do you know, that kind of stuff. It's just a case of relaxing through it all and just kind of like chilling out a bit more. That I was actually the very first year, but I went into something that I never had a clue of what I went into. So it was, I think it's just a game of experience, a game of learning. It's always, regardless how much off the top you get, you're forever going to be learning an extra 0.1% for the next year kind of thing. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, man. I mean, What, so backtracking a bit, we were talking about you take care of your own sort of training. I'm sure everyone wants to know A, your diet, and B, your training, but let's go over training first. I mean, what's your split? What do you do? I mean, do you have any advice for our listeners? Like, how do you approach training? I noticed you're doing a lot of heavy doubles at the moment. I think you just pulled 330, I think, which, you know, probably isn't necessarily the one for building muscle, but, you know, it'd be interesting to see, you know, what's your process behind that, and then how do you train as well, Mark?
So I've always I've always approached a kind of bodybuilding style split, the so-called like bro split, where I will only train one body part a session kind of thing. I started running a split. It was more so like, this is the weird thing as well. Like, I've always trained every single day. I've never, like, I would never sit here and be like, oh, check me out. I never take a rest day kind of thing. I don't look at it like that. My training is very, what you could say, like, auto-regulated. I will go in and do what I feel, as in weight-wise. I'll always go in and kind of be like, right, I know what I'm going in to do, whether that be like a bench press, chest press, flies, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Like, say I was going in to do legs, I would form a routine that's like, obviously, I'll still make sure that I'm doing my squats. I'll still make sure that I'm doing leg press. I'll still make sure that I'm doing things like extensions and stuff like that. That's always going to be in, but I don't logbook or anything like that. So it's more so a case of, I will literally just go in, however I'm feeling on that day is the sort of weight that I will get after. Like, I'll forever take my sets as far as possible, but I'll never be like, right, I've done 65 kilo for 10 reps this week, I must do it for 11 reps next week. Because, like, for instance, tonight I went in and done chest tonight, and I was able to like put the 50s up on a high incline for like paused reps, whereas last week when I went in, I was putting the 50s up because I'm back here now at the leisure centre. The dumbbells only go up to 50s, so last week I put the 50s up and they felt horrendous. Like, I could have pushed them for maybe 8 to 12 reps, but they would have been a very hard 8 to 12 reps, whereas tonight I went in and I done paused with dumbbells and I was able to push 12 with the 50s on a paused high incline. So it's like some things like that as well. I'll more so get routine done things like my barbell squats, flat bench, and deadlifts especially. Deadlifts especially, the goal for a little while has been a 330 pull. So I was confident enough going from a 320 double to a 330 single. And the goal on flat bench to now is between 190 and 200. So I took a 180 pause tonight. Therefore, like 2 pause sets. So 2 singles anyway. It's just a case of, again, it goes back to like auto-regulating. So my split looks like I would do legs and then chest. I would then do back, shoulders. So obviously whatever was on a Tuesday would change around on a Thursday. Arms, the way I look at arms is a kind of active rest day. So that's a Friday, it'll be like a kind of an active rest day. Saturday deadlifts, but it's not just solely focused around deadlifts. I will train back on that day. So that's like a second back day during the week. Obviously there'll be different exercises to the one that I do in the middle of the week compared to the one that I do at the end of the week. Mainly the one in the middle of the week, I'll be focused more so around barbell rows. That'll be the kind of main bigger compound in at the very start. I potentially will add in a row after my lifts, but it might not be a barbell row. It might be something like a T-bar row or something similar to that. Sunday, whatever happened on the Tuesday happens on a Sunday. So that means whenever it gets to the following Tuesday, whatever happened on the Thursday, it'll happen on the Tuesday. So it's like, one week will be chest on a Tuesday, shoulders on a Thursday. The following week will be shoulders on a Tuesday, chest on a Thursday, which will then mean once it gets to the Sunday, one of them body parts will get hit twice. So one of them body parts will get hit twice one week, then the following week it'll only get hit once, but the opposite body part, as in chest or shoulders, will get hit twice the following week. Does that make sense? It's like, see, well,
yeah, it's exhausting just hearing
it. It works out in my head.
Yeah.
So
that's it. I think you've lived it for a while.
It's an interesting way to look at it, but as you said, it's so you're doing a I don't know if you listen to the Fuad podcast, but he calls it a pro split. So all pro bodybuilders use that. But you're still getting your frequency in there, as in you're still hitting it twice over a 7-day period, but it's only every other week, which is I've never heard it programmed like that, but it makes sense, because then you're getting the best of both worlds.
So in terms of your sorry man, so in terms of your your strength work that you're putting in at the moment, you know, you're hitting 1 RMs and stuff like that. From what we've discussed with bodybuilders before, it's not necessarily something they pursue, or something they kind of place too much emphasis on. You know, from what I know, it's normally around sort of reps, I don't know, 6 maybe upwards, sort of 8 upwards. I mean, what's the thought process of, you know, bear in mind I'm a powerlifter, strongman, so I love seeing it. But like, what's the thought process of putting this heavy work in and chasing some 1 RMs?
The first kind of way I would look at it is I enjoy training more than anything else. I enjoy lifting heavy. I enjoy getting after silly weights. I don't really look at it from a bodybuilding perspective, as I obviously go into the gym, right, to better myself and improve my physique, but I also go into the gym because I enjoy to train, kind of thing. If it came to a point where bodybuilding was never a thing, I would never stop training. I would still consistently go to the gym, kind of thing. It goes back to that kind of term. It's like, I don't train to compete. I compete on stage because I train. It just so happens that it falls in. And again, it so happens that my passion for bodybuilding has grew to be very, very, very high. And as well, I always like most of my top end, most of my compound moves involve, apart from deadlifts recently, most of them involve a top set and a back off set. So a top set would more so be between the lines of, say, 1 and 6 reps, kind of thing. It'll vary week on week. Like deadlifts, especially deadlifts have been very low just because there has been the odd number that I've really wanted to hit. Squats have been a little bit higher, and it just so happens recently bench press has been a little bit lower. But then if it goes to a back offset, that's when they could then move up to, say, between 8 and 12 reps, 8 and 15 reps. Or for instance, like last week, my back offset on flat bench was 100, just for as many as possible, kind of thing. So I always want to make sure that I can go all out in a set of between 1 and 6 reps, but I can also go all out, and I'm also fit enough to be able to perform in a set of 6 to 20, 30 reps, kind of things, with the same intensity. So it's matched intensity always.
Yeah, so you kind of, your big heavy stuff is almost, your big heavy stuff's almost like lifting for the soul per se. It's more just you love doing it. You're gonna do. You might know that, all right, it might not be that conducive to my bodybuilding goals, but you know what, I don't really care. I do enough work to cover that, and I just love doing it.
Yeah, that's it.
So what have we got to do to convince you to put on a singlet then and get in the meet?
I don't know. I'm honestly like, I would love to, right? I think I just need to take more into consideration of when and where these things are happening, because it's like, I would do it, but I'm also too lazy to be like, right, I'm going to go on here tonight and check out where there's a meet or what I need to do to kind of, I don't know. I'm going to
sure we could point you in the right directions. And then I've competed in Scotland for British natural strongman as well, and we know a couple of guys. So if you ever wanted to, we could certainly push you in the right directions for that.
Oh, definitely. Please do.
Yeah,
no, it's been one of the goals for this year, this off season, to potentially compete in something like a powerlifting event, or more so looking. I would like to get to a gym that's got some form of strongman kit.
Whereabouts are you in Scotland?
I'm in Stranraer, so I believe the closest place with strongman stuff is Paisley. Free Fit or something like that it's called. I think they have a lot of strongman stuff.
I bet we'll talk over at Instagram. We'll have a look. I know a few of the Scottish guys. Failing that, you could just run around lifting up some stones like they do as well.
Yeah, plenty of big rocks. Who was it that we were talking to that was telling us all the different clan rocks that there are, like in Scotland and
we should have asked Chris about that last week. He's done it. He had an American come stay with him, and they toured around Scotland picking up all these special stones. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. But that'd be one for you. I'd watch that bodybuilder lifting stones on his YouTube.
Yeah, that'd be a good one for your YouTube channel. Going and finding some of those clan rocks and going and just. Be better if you got a bodybuilder, a powerlifter, and a strongman. Like it'd be like and if they were English, Irish, and Scottish, then you've got so many jokes all covered in one video. So
I mean,
in terms of like, I'll let Dan go.
That's right. You go, man. I'm sure I think we're about to ask the same thing anyway.
I was going to say, obviously, the podcast came about from a home gym group. It's called the Garage Athlete Show because the majority of our listeners do train at home. So I know you said that you had some different setups kind of like during the lockdowns and stuff, and I don't remember if you were here or if you were away. So when lockdown was happening, like, were you able to train at home? Like, how did you get about not being able to get to kind of like your normal gym?
Yeah, so I was able to train at home and things, so things were ideal that way. It was more or less just a kind of focusing on obviously the bigger moves. I never had access to like millions and millions and millions of machines and things like that. Like, don't get me wrong, I've never had access to things like that, but I've always mainly just focused on the bigger basic moves. Like, I'll opt for machines at the end of the session kind of thing. I like to, like, if you give me a barbell, I'll be happy. If you give me a set of dumbbells, I'll be happy. I'll make use of them. I think just because I've been brought up with very minimal kit, that it's like, if I ever get the chance to go into a gym that's got a full load of kit, I will be like a kid at Christmas, but I'll always go for a barbell first. You know what I mean? I'll always begin a session with something that I really know, and something that I really enjoy. So throughout lockdown, I was still able to train and things. And again, throughout working with Strength Shop, they were able to help me with the odd thing that I needed here and there. So I was still able to move about during lockdown. So it wasn't too bad. I wasn't stuck. But yeah, I think if it never came to the point where, like, don't get me wrong, that it's quite a lucky thing, obviously, to still be able to train in that throughout lockdown. But if I wasn't able to be in that position where I was able to kind of get that sort of help, I would have tried my ultimately best to try and get my hands on something down the lines of a barbell and some plates, to kind of keep some form of movement in. But I was obviously lucky enough to be in a position to still be able to train, which helped quite a bit. So
that's good. Yeah, so Strength Shop's your sponsor, right?
Yeah, Strength Shop's one of my main sponsors. So more or less like all of the kit that like accessories and stuff like that, like equipment for in the gym, I'll always be from Strength Shop. But I've worked with them for, it'll probably be coming up to a couple of years now. So they've been good. So
brilliant. That's great to hear they support you.
We'll get all your discount codes at the end. You can pimp them out a little bit. I think that's about everything that I wanted to cover. I've literally got my list of questions here. I like to be organised.
I'll go back in. So we covered training. So, you know, how did you develop your hashtag no days off, hashtag beats mode, you know, training every day? What you know, because obviously we know a lot about the of recovery, proper nutrition, you know, making sure you're great for each session. Where did that kind of training philosophy develop, where you're like, do you know what, I'm just going to train every day?
I think it just be when I got into training at the very start and I had no knowledge about anything. I used to go in after school every day, and it was just a case of, I think training every day from then has led me just to always just continue that on. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I do online coaching as well, and I would never recommend to train 7 days a week kind of thing. I would never program somebody to train 7 days a week. But I think just because I've took it from that, and again, like, some of my sessions are quite auto-regulated, so it means that some days, well, the weights will be a little bit different. I'm not saying that I go in and I'll just perform light weights, but sometimes when I do go in, like I said, for instance, one day I might be able to go in and push the 50s, 60s for 8 to 12 reps, and then the next session I might be going in and so it might take a back offset or something to quite like accumulate a little bit more volume, maybe in that one session. But I feel as if it all adds up kind of thing. But I obviously know, like, throughout contest prep and things like that, the importance of recovery is obviously a very, 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 very big thing. So that's why I'll always prioritize my sleep at night, and I'll always prioritize naps throughout the day. And then throughout my off season, especially, like, my food is always through the roof. Once I always like to get to a position where once I start prep, I can start prep on a decent amount of food. And then again, more or less, I will implement something like an active rest day on prep just to kind of clear my head and know that I'm going to train and do something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you know, I totally get that from what you're saying. Because I've got the gym at home now, and if the listener of our podcast might know about the stories of my, I've got twins and a daughter and a 4-year-old, so I just haven't slept for about 8 months, and it's been awful. I've just really struggled. But we're at a stage now where they're starting to sleep a bit more. So suddenly I'm now thinking, oh, the gym's just downstairs. I could just do some arms, or like you say, I was like, it doesn't really take much to do an arm session. I'll get that in. Whereas I never, because I've always trained sort of powerlifting, strongman. It's been very much, you need to rest up as much as you can for the next time, to lift as much as you can. Whereas now, kind of, I'm more focused on cutting at the moment and just lifting. So I'm like, I could do a bit of this, a bit of that, and suddenly I'm starting to fall into this. I've trained 5 days a week, which isn't normally what I would do, and then suddenly it's 6, and it's like, oh, I can see how your 7-day split has come in. I guess my next bit would be, what happens on days you go in and it's terrible? Say you want to bench, a decent amount of weight. Say you've got max reps with 160. You're like, yeah, I should be able to get like 8 on this, and you lift it and it's like 2. I mean, do you throw your toys out of the pram, or do you just take what's there and just reassess?
I would, that's where I would probably bring more sort of regulation into that session, and I would either bring in something down the lines of a back offset and then move on straight away. I wouldn't fuck about and waste time on that and try and I'll go again, I'll try it, it'll feel better kind of thing. I would more or less just leave it. And one of the other things as well, like with me kind of being brought up in a leisure centre where sometimes it has been very busy, so again, it's been impossible to plan because you could go in and everything could be taken. So it's like there's next to no kit as it is, do you know what I mean? So it's like if you go in and what you've set out to do is taken, what are you going to do kind of thing. So it's a case of I've just kind of learned to move on.
If you're pressing the 50s though at a leisure centre gym, I'm pretty sure they're done. There's probably not going to be that many guys picking up the 50s.
They usually just sit with some dust on them, but
you should just resign them. They're yours now. Just sign them.
Mate, I think you need to speak to your sponsor. You need some bigger dumbbells, mate.
Oh man, it's like, I think, see things like deadlifts and things like that, I've tried to kind of make sure that I'm using the same bar every week. Bench, I'm using the same bar every week. Squat, I'm using the same bar and plates every week. Just so, like, quite recently, because there's been quite a bit of traveling and that happening, I've not been able to do that. That's kind of where I've been like, I ran squats with one bar for so long and was able to do a 300, and then it was a case of I was squatting with different bars every single week. So I was I was always telling myself, right, I know that I wasn't going to be going anywhere near 300 again, especially with new plates, new bars, new platforms and that to squat on. I knew that wasn't going to be the case kind of thing. So I was like, wasn't that I stopped chasing heavy weights. It was just a case of I knew that realistically it probably wasn't going to be as close to 300 as what I would maybe like kind of thing. So I'm trying to get in a routine again of just using the same kit every single week. Thereas if I go in and I have a bad day on the same kit, I know it's because there's maybe something else playing up outside of training that it might affect that. But if I go to like a different gym and it is feeling off kind of thing, I'll pretty much just probably put it down to it being new kit, new plates, new environment. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know how you kind of get used to that one kind of bar, that one kind of set of plates, the one platform, the one like environment that you're in. Like I've trained out of a garage for so long kind of thing. It was like a more so kind of smaller home gym. Nobody about, my own music, and that was it. So it's like I very much got used to them weights. I got used to that bar on my back. All of these things changed. And like, I don't know, I just feel as if it's like a case of if I do go in and I have the odd kind of shitty session, I will be gutted. Don't get me wrong, like it will probably, especially if it's something like a squat or a bench or a deadlift, for instance. Deadlift's like probably one of my main biggest out of everything. So if I go in and I have a shitty deadlift session, that'll probably hit harder than anything else, but I would probably just move on. I feel as if I've got that discipline there to move on, get on with the session, like get in and get out kind of thing. Like don't mess about with anything, don't try and go back in and perform better. Just get what you need done, get out and move on the next day kind of thing. So I feel as if it's always been like that.
I think with auto regulation, it's a skill, and I think sometimes when you work with someone, it's almost having a trust. Sometimes it might be written on paper, do 5 sets of 5 with this, but you'll do 1 set or 2 sets. You're like, that's just not there today, and it's hard to do. I think this is where I think sometimes coaching can step in quite well. You might find this with your athletes where you can just you take the emotion out of it. So it's like, yes, I know you wanted 5 reps with 150, but it's not there. We'll take it down to 130 or 1, and we'll do what we need out of the session. But I think it's also that confidence to know that there will be another session, a good session around the corner. Like you haven't your strength hasn't just disappeared overnight. It will come back. But an important part of that is the nutrition, making sure your sessions of fuel and all that. So I know you're working with a coach, but I mean, I'm sure everyone's dying to know, like, what does your diet look like? I mean, do you follow sort of higher carb? Do you go IIFYM, or are you more sort of meal plans? Like, how does your personal nutrition sort of diet work?
Throughout off season, it's more or less I will have a specific amount of real sources of protein, real sources of carbs to get in, and then anything on top of that is, in a way, I would look at it as a kind of bonus. It's extra calories. It just goes in. As long as I more so gauge off performance. If performance is going well, it means that outside things are okay. If performance starts maybe dipping a little bit, I would more so look towards the outside kind of variables and see what's maybe not being met. But during contest prep, it's always a high carb diet, always more so around sweet potato, white potato, and oats. That's really that's my only carb sources. Protein as in powder, and chicken with my meals, and that's it. That's a meal plan throughout prep from start to finish, same foods. Nothing ever changes. I've never really been pushed for refeed days or anything like that. It's always been like oats first thing in the morning, chicken, sweet potato, white potato post training, and that's me. Throughout all season, I'll keep them in, so they'll really be my main kind of protein and carb sources. Although throughout the off season, I always go off oats. Like I get to the point where I can't stomach oats anymore, so they always get chucked out. Everything else gets kept in. I kind of add in a little bit more variety, things like rice and stuff, but I try not to have a lot of rice because I just don't feel it kind of fills me up that much. So I try my best to stick to more so your potato and things like that. But off season wise, again, there's a lot more food. It's not just your things like chicken, sweet potato, chicken, white potato. I eat a lot of cereal, cereal bars and things. Just easier calories to make sure that I am getting enough food in, but at the same time, I would never just focus on that. There's always going to be a specific amount of protein taken in. There's always going to be a specific amount of real carbohydrates taken in. Fats are always minimal. Obviously, throughout my off-season, fats are a little bit higher, but throughout prep, it's literally next to no fat. It's just the way that Vicky's always had me on. And once I started working with Vicky, everything really changed because I never ate sweet potato in my life. I'd never thought of having chicken and potato as a meal or anything like that. I was always your more so bro meals like chicken and rice, cereal post workout, things like that. Once I started working with Vicky, everything got took away, so it was just a case of had to just do it. And everything went to plan. So I've kind of just seen the way that my body's responded to that sort of meals. And again, like throughout my off season, after contest prep's done, my body always responds very well to a rebound, a good bit of food, not extreme. Like I would never gain 30 pounds in a week kind of thing, but I would never be hesitant to gain a bit of weight after competition, just because I know that I need to get healthy as soon as possible, and especially like down kind of the route of getting like ultimately shredded. It's like it's not healthy. Obviously, everybody knows it's not healthy at all. So I would rather not fuck about and spend 6 months only 100 calories over my contest prep diet. I would rather get a little bit of fat back on, get a little bit of weight back on, get my food up to where it needs to be, and try and get healthier a little bit quicker. Because obviously, after contest prep as well, like I always find that my performance it doesn't dip, but everything just feels so much harder. Like we always do a water load as well on your kind of peak week approach. So I always find that I'm dehydrated for so long after contest prep, just because you go from all of that over the course of maybe 3 or 4 days, and then all of a sudden you're drinking no water, and it's like, oh, everything just feels sore and tight, and it's like
you have to be really careful in that week after competing as well, just because of stress. You'll also most people go out and have a massive salty cheat meal like after competing as well. So then the next day, like if you'll see a lot of people mess with their sodium before a competition, and then they wonder why they look so much better the next day than they did on stage. And it's because you've got no salt in your system, and you've gone out and you've had a pizza, so you've filled yourself with it. It's not the carbs, it's the sodium, and the sodium's just kind of helped you fill out. So you've mentioned about doing like water loads. Like do you do a lot kind of like in your peak week? Do you manipulate like sodium levels, like carb levels? I think Lane Norton talks about like front loading at the front end of the week, and then kind of going in a more normal diet. Like what do you find works best for you in terms of that peak week?
So I would deplete first. I would spend 3 days in depletion, and then the 4th, 5th, 6th day, and then 7th day would be show day. From the 4th day, that would be a carb up day. So that, as in, like, that would be very much the highest amount of carbs. I believe I took up once like 2.5 kilo or something like that of potato. It was a lot of potato anyway. The first day, the first day as well, that 4th day was the highest amount of water. It was up at like 11, 12 liters. The following day, it kind of tapered down a little bit. Sweet potato was added back in as well. The day before the show, again, was tapered down a little bit more sweet potato, more chicken, sweet potato, really, just more or less back to normal meals. And then things like salt and that got cut at specific times throughout the day. During the day, I was eating more or less every hour. So there was a little bit of fruit in that added in. I always like I've always looked over like the kind of peak week diet, and I've been like, oh my fucking god, like it's more like a science you're looking at than anything else. It's not.
Yeah.
You sit and think, how would that work? But then you sit and think, how would that not work? It's like,
yeah, when you are that depleted as well, the last thing you want to be doing is trying to figure out what to do at that point. Like, I know a lot of people do like self prep and stuff, and I think just whatever you pay for a coach, it pays for itself in that week. Not having to make those decisions, as long as the coach does you right. There's lots of different theories when it kind of comes to peak weeks. Like I've done 2 now. My first one went horribly. I think I spilled over, and you can see it in my photos, and I was stressed. And then the second one, I was a hell of a lot less stressed, and I wasn't panicking about it. So I think you're completely right, as in everybody's kind of got their own, strategies. Obviously you're in great hands with Vicky. If she's running the BMBF, it's not exactly like it's her first time prepping somebody, and I think by the sounds of it, you've just got complete faith in her, which when you've got a athlete that you're working with, like that's the level of trust that you've got to have in them. Just because if they start second guessing what you're doing and not following instructions, it's then very, very hard to know what went well and kind of what didn't. So you said that you'll put quite a bit of weight back on. So give us some rough numbers. Like, where do you tend to sit, like at peak off season? How much weight will then you lose then to kind of get on stage? And then how much weight then comes back on in those first kind of couple of weeks?
Right now, I am 39 pounds over competition stage weight. So I've like, with lots of traveling and things like that recently, I've like lost, I think, between 4 and 5 pounds, 3 and 5 pounds anyway. My weight kind of fluctuates depending, obviously, if food is 100% on, or food's obviously not 100% on. Say for instance, there's a day where I don't get a specific X amount of calories in, or there's more movement involved, therefore obviously my expenditure is maybe a little bit more, food's a little bit lower. But I kind of, peak off season, I've only ever been kind of between 25 and 30 pounds over weight, like on stage. But this year I've really tried to push it and push it and push it, because I know that now I don't really have a choice. I am going to be competing obviously in the pro leagues again and that, so it's a case of I don't really have a choice but to come back bigger and better. I know that's going to need to happen. So I've really tried to push food as much as possible, and now obviously I've got more time with the bodybuilding and that, so it's just a case of focusing more or less on making sure everything's all good and on plan with that, over going loads and loads and loads of time thinking, all right, I'll no need to focus on it this week, but I'll focus on it next week, kind of thing. So it's just always making sure that I am kind of obviously on top of everything. But right now I'm obviously my heaviest that I've ever been. And again, like, a lot of people like to say, oh, I'm a heaviest and I'm leanest at this weight and kind of thing. Like, that doesn't really bother me that much. I'm not fussed about being in the best shape of my life in my off season, because nobody cares what shape you're in your diet phase either, apart from the judges on show day. But at the same time, like, I believe I am in my best shape in my off season right now for the weight that I'm at. But at the same time, if I was to creep up another 5 pounds and not look like this, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I wouldn't beat myself up about it and lose that 5 pounds again, so I could see a line in my delt. Do you know what I mean? I'm not one of these kind of people that likes to consistently be in Instagram shape so I can get an extra 20 likes. I like to make sure that I'm focused on obviously what I am focusing on, and making sure that once it does come back around to show day, that I am going to be looking a bit different. I'm not just going to be looking very similar just because of that amount of weeks that I stayed in shape, just because I focused more or less on what people were thinking about me on social media and things, because that's really all that this day and age is, that the modern day bodybuilding and fitness industry, everything's on social media. So it's just really about that. But this off season especially, this one especially is about making sure that I am pushing as far as I can. So
yeah, man. I mean, how have you found? I mean, I guess you're probably a generation growing up with social media like Instagram, Facebook. I mean, we grew up kind of with Facebook and then Instagram. Like, Instagram came a bit later, but I mean, like with you guys, but sort of, I say you guys, you're only like sort of like 10 years younger than me. But like, what's it like? The pressures of, say, do you feel there's pressures from Instagram, I don't know, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever people use these days to look a certain way? I mean, how do people interact with you on your social media? I mean, do you find there's any positives from it? Is there a lot of negatives? Like, how do you deal with it all?
I think it's quite like, with Instagram mainly, it's kind of been a case of maybe like 70-30%. 70% you'll get positivity, 30% you'll get just randomers commenting on your stuff that probably don't have a profile picture and have no followers, just trolls really. You will get them, but at the same time, it's like, I use Instagram as more as a kind of log. It is really my logbook. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'll post my probably main lifts on it only. And then again, it's always a case of, if I was to go from the very start to where I am at now, it'll just be like a kind of line of progression kind of thing on specific sets. So that would be kind of my log more than anything else. But I don't know, I've never really felt the kind of pressure to look a certain way recently, because it's got to a point where my social media has kind of took off a little bit. Sometimes I felt like maybe under pressure a little bit going into sessions, because I've been posting on specific days, whereas, like, say for instance, I deadlifted on a Saturday for so long and I was posting my deadlifts on a Saturday, I would then kind of sometimes go in to do deadlifts and be like, right, there's people waiting. Do you know what I mean? There's people waiting on me deadlifting. So it's like you kind of do put yourself under that little bit more pressure to perform well. And then sometimes if it does go to shit, that's probably when the most kind of the hardest days are. Just because you sometimes feel as if you've let people down a little bit. But I've never ever felt pressure to look a certain way. My kind of case has been more or less inside the gym, what I'm doing inside the gym. Because that's the kind of thing I don't want to like. I would never want to push looking a specific way because it really matters looking that way. I would always want to push like the ethic inside the gym, because I feel as if that's where the modern day bodybuilding industries lack the most. People focus on looking a certain way, and people focus on only eating this amount of food, only eating that amount of food, taking this amount of rest days because they feel they need it, but nobody really focuses on what's the kind of effort that's been put inside the gym. And I feel as if I want to push that side more than anything else. I never really want to be like, for me, I would always want to be looked at somebody that can be looked up to, like towards training. My ethic inside the gym, obviously I would never say my ethic outside the gym and towards my food, and that's not 100%, but when it comes to training and like my passion for training, my intensity within training, my drive to always be better in training, I always really, that's kind of my main drive more than anything else. So
no, it's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, we bring up all the time, but I was fortunate enough to play rugby with Jordan Peters years and years ago. Like, grew up all through the age groups with him, and there's a lot of your sort of the way you're going about things, mirrored in the way he trains. Super heavy, more on the process. Obviously, it's great to win the trophies at the end of the day, but that kind of work ethic, he sort of cites his dad as a great influence on him for his work ethic and what he wants from life. And it sounds like your mum's having the same influence on you. So I think it's I think it's good. I mean, getting in the gym, training hard, eating clean, instead of taking selfies in the toilet and shoving stuff up your nose at the weekend. I think it's much better to go the route you're going. I think it'd be good. It's refreshing to hear you talk about social media in the way you have, because like it is a hell of a it's a hell of a thing. I think now, possibly you might be in an algorithm, I'm not sure, but as your social media grows, it would be hopefully something you can keep an eye on, and not let pressures from having a great session or that, and just sort of because I have the same, but more often than not you'll just see the good sessions that I've done put up, not necessarily the bad ones, and that is pure similar to what you were saying. You'd sort of it's that feeling like I guess you've let people down, but you haven't, but it feels like it has, but you haven't at all, right? It's it's all part of the process. But I think you seem pretty active on there, and you get a ton of questions, and I think you're quite good at responding to them all. So yeah, I think it's good, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, they do. So where can people find you on the interwebs?
So I'm more like active on Instagram. I'm on there probably 24/7 throughout the day. You'll always find me on Instagram. There'll always be. I just think I'm at the point where anything that I'm doing, I'll just be more like, I'll be very much inclined just to pick up my phone and just take a picture of it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's wherever I am or what I'm eating, and it's like I don't even know why. It's just, I think it's just became a point where like some people are always like to me, oh, I forget about that, I forget about Instagram and that, but I think it's just more so like it's just natural now just for me to do that. Do you know what I mean? It's just kind of second nature to everything.
Yeah, it's a hard one, because I think sometimes it can be seen the people around you like, really, do you have to do this? But at the same time, like, this is you're your product, like this is the business as well. So we all know you have to be freaking literally this all the time to be seen. So yeah.
But yeah, so Instagram's the main one. It's just Kiffy West _. I also have a YouTube channel that is slightly grown a little bit. It's okay. Try and kind of post a couple of videos up there a week. But they are the main ones. So.
Oh, fantastic. But I mean,
awesome. We'll put the links to both of those in the show notes, mate, so people can find you.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you on, talk shop. I know Dan loves talking bodybuilding. We had some strongmen and powerlifters on him for last week, so we've evened it out now.
If we're gonna have a with his lifting, and I'm sure that we always laugh on the podcast. How do you tell a natural bodybuilder? How do you tell a natural bodybuilder? And it's like, well, you can't. They all look the same with their t-shirts on. It's only when they take them off. So that's a little joke. But I think you might disprove that rule though. So
I was gonna say, like, looking at his pictures on Instagram, I think Chris might be an exception to the rule.
Yeah, that would be an exception. It's more when the t-shirt comes off. It's like when Don takes his, he'll have his picture. Like, yeah, you can see it's like, fuck, you look massive, your rips all that. But normally we see him in a t-shirt. I've got friends with bodybuilders. You're like, do you lift weights? Like,
yeah. What are those things coming out of your shirt? Oh, that's your arms. Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. The classic, like, we have that laugh, like, I'll see you train, like, with powerlifters and strongmen. We just look like just giant men, and it's like, oh, so you put all that effort in, and you still look like that. Then you train like 5 times a week. You're like,
so then you just go and flip over his car, like that's.
Yeah, man. It's great to have you on, mate, and I think we'll look forward to watching your career over the next few years. I think you're will be one to watch, and I think definitely do some things over the next few years, buddy.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it a lot.
Anytime, man. And yeah, thank you very much, and we'll speak soon.